Good morning or good afternoon, depending on how you think of noon. Welcome to the 23rd Annual Exhibit of Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Technologies. We've been here for quite some time looking for the newest innovations, the ways to commercialize these products and get them out there to the users. We'll be talking with someone who has a very innovative approach to commercialization of fuel cell technologies. I'll be talking to Anthony Anderson, who's Director of Marketing and Business Development at Combustion Inc. And we'll be talking about diesel-fueled solid oxide fuel cell generators and the road to commercialization. So stay tuned for fascinating news, and please welcome with me Anthony Anderson.
Very good. Thank you, Brian.
So, hello, Anthony. It seems that we have done this 2 or 3 times.
Yes. We talked about this and other things that we're developing into precision combustion, or PCI, as we're also known as.
So let's start with the company introduction,
sure.
Because many may not know who you are, where you are, and what you do.
Absolutely. Precision Combustion is a small business. We're privately owned in North Haven, Connecticut, in the northeast of the United States. And this is actually, we've been coming to the Hanover Messe now since 2012. So we have a booth over at E78, so over by the Technical Forum. And so come see us over there as well. We have been developing catalytic technologies since 1986. So we've been around a while for various cycles of technologies that we're trying to go from science to technology and technology to products. And we actually have a few different technologies that we're pushing toward products right now. We have 4 different brackets, I guess, or categories. We have the power generation category, which is typically fuel cell systems, internal combustion engine generators, and even Stirling engine generators, and that we take our burner technology and partner with Stirling engine companies, for example. Then we have combustion technologies, and so we have downhole heat and steam generation technology, that we have pressurized combustors that we use for oil production and for steam generation of soils and the like for various applications. A third area that we're involved in is actually air and gas cleanup, and so a lot of that was funded by NASA and EPA for cleaning up atmospheres, either on spacecraft or within buildings and the like, absorbing CO2 and things like that. And then the 4th category is kind of a miscellaneous area of specialty things. We're developing cetane sensors and Sabatier methanation, for example, for power to gas, if you wanted to do something like that. Even the military is funding us to convert natural gas commercial ovens to use the jet fuels that the military uses, to actually have low-cost ovens that can operate how they operate. So it's a wide variety of things that we're involved in, and so it makes it interesting.
So for a small company, you do a lot. Where is from an engineering perspective, you have core competencies.
Yes.
You know, some people are good electrochemistry and things. What are the core competencies that allow you to do this large portfolio of various products?
Yeah, well, we have a patented and trademark technology called microlith, which is a catalyzed mesh or screen type structure that is a platform technology that we use as a building block for all these various chemical reactors, whether it's a combustion type system or a partial oxidation, so leading to reforming, water gas shift, preferential oxidation of carbon monoxide, and all those type of chemical reactors. So that's knowing how to coat the mesh and keep it on for thousands and thousands of hours while you cycle from room temperature to 800 or 900 degrees Celsius and back down again is something that we've developed. We're starting to develop more integration skills, as well as being able to work with partners and pull balance of plant components, pumps and blowers and heat exchangers and like, working with solid oxide stack companies and bringing their technology into the system. And so moving these integrated systems toward products we can provide to a customer for test and evaluation. If the customer likes it, then they'll fund us again to do engineering and manufacturing development to productionize it, and then have a production contract after that. So we've had 7 different products now that we're pushing to this region of pre-commercialization. So the downhole heat and steam generation is actually being field tested. We have 3 different fuel cell systems, a 1, a 2, and a 10 kilowatt, all solid oxide based diesel or jet fuel type based fuel cells. And then we have some combustion engine generators we're developing at 350, 450, and 900 watts of output as well. So a lot of different areas, and so we're, I guess, circling back is being able to understand those new applications and doing the modeling for the new applications, calculating the catalyst, and then integrating it. So we're good at working up to the point of providing prototypes for evaluation. then it's finding the right partners as we're developing in the middle there, and finding the right, because we're not a stack manufacturer, so finding the right stacks to use, finding the right pumps and blowers and balance of plant equipment, and heat exchanger equipment, and the like as well, to be able to integrate that together, and then finding a commercial customer that wants to work with us and collaborate us, not just to work money, because we just don't do the venture capitalist route where you pay us money and we provide something for you at that point, but finding somebody that has both money, or they could be customer facing as well, or have a technology they're trying to commercialize that's compatible with what we're doing and complementary to what we're doing. And so finding those right partners is something that we've developed a competency in. And actually 1/3 of our revenue last year was from overseas companies, Japan and here in Europe and in the Middle East, that are funding us to do other technologies, not fuel cell system technologies per se, but other areas that we're involved in. And so we want to actually migrate that whole philosophy, and finding the right partners here in Europe to help push hydrogen and fuel cell type technologies forward toward commercialization.
We'll get to, of course, the solid oxide fuel cell specifically as an example for the issues of commercialization. But just generally speaking, when we went through the list of things, I think desulfurization and so on, a lot of your technologies are actually related to green technologies, which are complicated because that could be a more effective use of fossil fuels.
Right.
They're just far more effective. So is there some company strategy that involves looking directly at green technologies, better ways of using fossil fuels? Do you have a policy there in your company?
Yeah. So everything we try to do is, we're hydrocarbon agnostic, I guess. So if you have a fossil fuel, we'll take that and do something with that. If you have a biodiesel or some kind of renewable methanol or something like that, we can use that, and certainly those are cleaner than the fossil fuels. So it's an incremental improvement in some cases, and so it's better than not improving it at all, I guess. And so we typically eliminate NOx and reduce carbon dioxide by 20% because you're more efficient for a given level of output. And so those are important things, I think. But and then also with Sabatier methanation, being able to do CO2 and hydrogen from electrolysis kind of dovetails with that. And then even some work that we're doing with absorption and cleaning up gas. We're notified by the Department of Energy that we're going to be receiving $1 million agreement for a 2-year research and development project to be able to absorb CO2 out of flue gas to help mitigate what's coming out of coal and natural gas plants as we go forward. And so that's kind of a whole other area that we're involved in.
So all very green in the portfolio. When we think of the fuel cell industry 10 years ago, the ideology wasn't hydrocarbon agnostic. We had these dreamers on the stage maybe 15 years ago. You get a PEM cell, you put pure hydrogen into it, and hopefully from renewable energies, so you assume it's sort of green. We need a development, though. We need to manufacture PEM cells, get them on the market. So people have adjusted their philosophy. Reformer technology and natural gas is a better way to use natural gas anyway. Increase the efficiency by 30%, and you've got your carbon initiative levels achieved. We have to improve things. So, but you have an interesting take. You have a solid oxide fuel cell system using diesel, but not only diesel. Very flexible, very agnostic on the side of hydrocarbon sources, and you offer that beginning in a 1 kilowatt range. Let's talk about the technology first of all. The 1 kilowatt unit, which you're featuring at your booth. E78 around the corner.
E78, we have a mock-up essentially of what the diesel-fueled solid oxide fuel cell generator actually looks like, to give the customers and potential partners the idea of what the size of this device might look like. So in the particular development program, it actually, we're fundamentally being funded by the military for their needs and their applications using the jet fuels the military uses. But as you mentioned, it's fuel agnostic, so we're looking to do commercial versions using commercial diesel as well for that particular technology, and repackaging it and having it for those types of applications in addition to the military. And so we actually have the 1 kilowatt size, 1.2 kilowatt will be delivered to a military customer for evaluation within a year. And so it's trying to find the right partners to be able to work with other applications and the like, after that, because we want to make sure that everything works well for those applications first. And then we also kind of try to focus on some niche applications as far as these portable and distributed power generation that if you're able to run for 1,000 hours or 4,000 or 5,000 hours, that's good enough for those particular markets. Whereas in the stationary fuel cell folks, they need to 50,000 hours is where they need to start from to be commercially viable and to be of real interest, and of course get the cost down as well. So the military is funding us for the fundamental development, but they're fully expecting us to find other commercial channels for this. So it'll be a dual-use technology, because then in the commercial market might buy 10 or 100 times as many as the military might buy. But because of volume, the costs are going to drop, and the military can then pay less for their particular systems that they purchase down the road.
When we look at the success stories in the fuel cell industry, we tend to realize that batteries are not going to go away. They're wonderful vehicles, but often they don't like to be fully discharged. They don't like to be overcharged, and the charging time is an issue. So we've seen that there's been a huge success story in combining hybrid vehicles. You have the classic PEM cell next to a battery. You refuel that more quickly. Well, here's another option. Are you thinking of an application where you use the solid oxide fuel cell as a range extender? The issue, of course, is that there's not a hydrogen infrastructure. And when you build something that's great, but you can't fill it up anywhere, you really have a problem.
Right.
Have you thought of this? One of the possible applications, a range extender, a hybrid unit combining batteries and solid oxide fuel cell power?
Certainly. And even the small device that we have on display in the booth, there's a little orange box that represents the battery that's in there to start up the system and provide the load balancing, taking the power off of it. And so we have that philosophy of how we operate with integrating battery technology and hybridizing it. So we are looking at range extender or propulsion for various small vehicles. Again, in the small kilowatt range, not what they were thinking about, or even in fuel cells, are 50 kilowatts or 75 kilowatts of output, but much smaller than that. 1 to 5 kilowatt range, 10 kilowatt range, to be able to do those type of things. But certainly keeping those attributes in mind of what it would take to be successful. So you're always going to have a battery in these type systems, I believe, just to be the most effective.
People, when they think diesel, of course, in Germany, there's a big debate right now because they have the fine particle dust from the diesel engines. Right. When you use diesel fuel in a solid oxide fuel cell, do you have that issue? No,
you're converting it into basically it's a hydrogen-containing gas at that point. And so hydrogen, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and then steam, water vapor, essentially, and the nitrogen that might blow through as well are the only things that come out of it. And so, because of the efficiency, you have much lower CO2, and then you don't have any nitrogen oxides whatsoever, or particulate matter, on the output as well.
It's the particular matter we worry about in Germany, because in large cities there's a huge debate. Yeah. That is what demonstrably shortens people's lives when they live close to large traffic areas. So it's a fundamental issue. So you solved that issue. Yeah. When you say fuel agnosticism, of course, we think diesel, but I think solid oxide fuel cells are famous because they eat just about everything. So what other fuels? If we're thinking aviation, if we're thinking boats, what other fuels do they swallow up?
Yep, and so we've done various jet fuels that would be for drones or unmanned vehicles. We did have a program a few years ago with the Navy for unmanned underwater vehicles that was using a specific non-sulfur containing military fuel for that application. And so we're certainly considering all those as well, and all those various applications where it's either portable, distributed, or vehicular are kind of our sweet spots. The large stationary certainly can be done by us, but they're not as of interest because there's just so many more competitors in that area that have technologies that are good enough and do what needs to be done for those applications. And so we try to focus on areas where we have the best competitive strength. And so our reforming technology, our combustion technology, are typically lighter than weight and smaller in size than other competitors, which lends itself toward those mobile applications and distributed applications where you have to move things around.
Now, you have a particular philosophy when you approach commercialization. Some people have the typical image of the mad inventor who sits in his basement and he finally discovers there's a eureka moment, but now he's got to convince someone to actually throw venture capital into that. and that can be very challenging, particularly if he's thinking, we're going to change the world in one step, we're going to replace all combustion engines with this. Usually it's kind of hard to convince large venture capitalists to jump into stages of technology where you really need to prove the technology on a smaller scale. So how do you approach commercialization when you have a product right now with a huge niche market potentially, and an even larger future ahead of it? So how are you going to commercialize that?
So basically what we try to find is applications where we have a customer with a need. And so finding those, and in particular in the United States, the military's decided they want to investigate solid oxide fuel cells further, and so they're providing 100% of the funding. When you go to commercial applications, though, that's not always the case. The United States Department of Energy is funding some solid oxide fuel cell development and some hydrogen, H2 at scale development as well, hydrogen generation development. They typically look for cost share in those applications as well. So as a small company doing development work, we don't have a profit from a product that we're selling all the time that we can decide to reinvest in all that. So finding the right partners that actually have either co-funding or synergistic funding, because they have a technology they're trying to commercialize as well, and so they're looking to partner with us, is very key to what we try to do. And so finding those people that we can work with in parallel, whether they're stack suppliers, or I mentioned Stirling Engines. We don't make Stirling Engines, but finding a Stirling engine company, we do the burner, and we integrate it together. And sometimes they integrate the system, sometimes we integrate the system. And so it's finding the trust and being able to work with people along those lines to be able to move these technologies forward. Certainly, and you have to have patient money, I think, as well, as far as going through this. It's not going to, snap your fingers and be magic. I mean, even looking at the fuel cell cars, I think there's 4,000 fuel cell cars in California right now. A year ago, there was 1,800 or 2,000, some number like that. So it's going to take a while for these technologies to be penetrated in all these different applications, and certainly. No sense not trying to reduce CO2 emissions by making things more efficient in the interim as we move away from fossil fuels, except for more niche applications, and try to go to more renewable hydrogen and other things like that.
Mm-hmm. So with this approach to commercialization, what is your mission here at the Hanover Fair in 2018? And generally, what is your mission when you come to the fair? You've been here for several years.
Yeah.
What's your goal?
Great conversations every year, and it's a long sales cycle, and so it's not something where we're going to sell something tomorrow. We still want to prove our technologies and do our development work that we're doing, and our partners might be developing their own technology and with knowledge of what we're doing, and we're developing our own technology, trying to bring it all together. And so finding the right partners is key. Finding people that have the applications knowledge, might be customer-facing type knowledge, and then moving it together toward a commercialization state. And then for when you get to production and the like, there'll be we'll supply reformers or burners for a system to a particular partner. And so if there are 100 units a year or something, or what's required, and it can tolerate a higher price, then maybe we'll be the manufacturer for that. But if you're talking tens of thousands of units, or automotive quantity starts at 500,000, and they want them in 18 months, by the way. So you can't go from a company with 43 employees to somebody that can make 500,000 units in 18 months with a straight face. You have to license that technology, do a technology transfer type of an arrangement. And so finding those right people to partner with for that aspect, having patient money, having something they bring to the table besides money, whether it's a complementary technology or an application where a power generation system goes into an application, or being customer facing for a particular market. Those are the kinds of things that we are keen to find, and that's really the mission of why we're here, to try to find those right people for both the European market and the world market.
So it sounds like you're at the crossroads between large-scale manufacturing, R&D, and niche markets.
Yes, and it's a fun place to be. There's a lot of interesting things going on.
Yeah, and it's a fun place to be at the booth around the corner, E78, where Tony Anderson will be happy to answer further questions. I've been talking to Anthony Anderson, who's Director of Marketing and Business Development at Precision Combustion Inc. Do visit their booth, E78, around the corner there. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Anthony. Knowledgeable, interested in the technology, and flexible. So join the conversation later at the booth.
Great.
Anthony, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Please come back next year.
Absolutely. We'll look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you. Up next on the stage in a few minutes, we'll be talking to Dr. Albrecht Müllmann, who's a member of the board at HY Cologne, and we'll be discussing a wonderful metaphor, Quo Vadis, fuel cell vehicles. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? Stay tuned. The drinks are on the house. We'll be back in a minute. Thanks, Anthony.